Alrighty guys, welcome back to another one. In today's breakdown video, well, I have this Eley shell here. Now these were made in Great Britain. So, obviously this is a paper hull and it has number 6 shot in it. It doesn't say the velocity anywhere or how much shot is actually in this, but I have seen claim that it's supposed to be 30 grams and a 2.5 inch shell. This is 2 3/4 inch. But it feels like it's about 1 ounce and 1/8 shell. So I guess we'll be seeing that, won't we? 30 grams is equal to about 1 1/16 ounces, which is slightly less than 1 ounce and 1/8, but more than 1 ounce. But these are really cool. You can see they are very, very shiny. From the information I gathered online, the varnish used on these is called Pegamoid, which I've actually never heard of. Now, sadly, I do not have the box for these, but I will put it up right here. And it looks like a vintage shot shell box, something you'd see from the 30s, 40s, 50s, sometimes even 60s. But yeah, it definitely looks like a vintage box, as does the shell here. It looks like a vintage shell, being paper and very, very glossy and smooth. This does have a fold crimp, which I think was invented in 1963 by Remington. I could be wrong about that. That might have been when paper hulls came out. But I'm pretty sure that the fold crimp was standardized in 1963. Not standardized, but made available to the public. I don't know. Anyway, this is a really, really nice looking shell. It has an 8mm brass head on it. The primer is actually brass too. You can see right there. By the way, this is actual brass. The head stamp says Eley Kynoch or Keenock. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. 12 gauge ICI. That looks like waves in an ocean maybe down there. Now, I don't know if this is an original shell or a reproduction from about 10 years ago. Eley did re-release this shell about 10 years ago, and the vintage ones apparently look very similar. I really can't comment about that, but all I can say is this is a really nice looking shell, and I have no idea if it's vintage or modern. I also have no idea if this is going to have a plastic wad in it or it's done with fiber wads. I'm really curious to see though, it does say high velocity, so I'm assuming this is at least 1300 FPS. And obviously, it is smokeless powder, made in Great Britain, number 6 shot once again. And, well, that is about all it says. So yeah, the shell does look really cool. Let's see what's in it. Okay, so starting with the powder here, well, as you guys seen, it's 29 of this stuff right here. It is a concrete colored flake powder with yellow dots in it. Not really seen too much stuff like this before, but that looks like a modern powder to me, not really a vintage style powder, although I have seen vintage powders similar to this, but not quite exact. But who's to say? There are so many vintage powders out there. Nothing really special to note here. Moving on to the hull, well, this is a focus, come on. This is a 2 3/4 inch hull here. Obviously paper. If we take a look down inside of it, if this thing will focus, sorry guys, this does have a paper base wad and it is bowl shaped. And we can see the primer in there. Interestingly, there is no sealant over that primer, or at least it doesn't appear to have a sealant. But paper base wad, which is further telling me that this is likely a vintage shell and not a modern one. All modern paper hulls I've seen have all had plastic base wads. Nope, this is paper. Of course, that doesn't really mean anything. Federal paper base wad shells still have a, paper base wad, obviously. But there it is. There's the hull. Obviously straight wall. Nothing else really to note. Trying to get a better in-focus shot of it. I guess that's as good as it's going to get. So for a gas seal in this one, we just have a nitro card. This is a 3mm nitro card, or about 70 thou. Nothing really special there. And once again, this doesn't really tell me if it's an old shell or modern, because we still see modern shells done up like this, although I've never seen a modern shell with this style of fiber gas seal in there. It actually feels like a really, really hard cork. I feel like if I bend it, it will break, so I'm not going to try to bend it. You can see right there on the right edge, it is starting to split a little bit though. But there's the gas seal. Now, above the gas seal, it does just have, I'm sorry, this camera will not stay focused for anything, but it has about a solid inch of fiber cushion wad in there. This is the bottom one. It came out no issues at all. And it looks like, focus, maybe some compressed straw. Don't know, what's it smell like? Okay, honestly, I'm not even kidding here. This smells just like dill pickles. That is really odd. And here's the one above it. Sadly, it did split on me, but it is the same material. I believe these are waxed. And once again, this smells just like a dill pickle. I'm not sure why it would have such a strong dill smell, but it does. And you can see the lead left impressions on the top piece right here. So, all in all, the stack height here of the fiber wads take up about 1 1/8 inches, which is fairly typical. Now, the shot here is really oxidized, and some of the fiber is stuck to it. You can see none of those pellets are shiny, and one at the top right is actually egg-shaped, which is leading me, right there the center one is too, leading me to believe that this is chilled shot, which is plain lead. Let's take a better look at this and then weigh it. Okay, so that one that's split right there near the top left, that is the one my screwdriver went through whenever I was prying this up. That is the first time that has happened to a lead pellet, telling me that, yeah, this is soft lead. No antimony, no tin, nothing like that. Just pure soft lead. They all appear to be the same size, although, as you can see, they are very oxidized. A few of them are still shiny. I'm starting to think this may be a vintage shell here. Please excuse the chainsaw in the background, but this actually weighs slightly more than 1 1/8 ounces. That would be 1.125. This is 1.133. So again, slightly more than 1 1/8 ounces. I thought these were supposed to be a 30-gram load here, which would be a fuzz below 1 1/16 ounces, which again is right in between ounce and 1 1/8 ounces. Well, this is slightly more than 1 1/8 ounces. That's surprising. Update on the lead. It is pure lead. That squished, soft as butter. No effort at all. Yep, that is chilled shot, leading me once again to think that this is likely a vintage shell, not modern. Although, once again, it doesn't really confirm or deny, but that primer style looks like it's a vintage shell. Again, if you guys know, let me know. I'm starting to really think this is a vintage shell. All in all, this one's very, very simple, as I thought it would be, being a paper shell. Just powder, nitro card for a gas seal, 2 fiber cushion wads, shot, and crimp. No plastic of any kind is in this. And we do have soft lead. A very, very vintage style shell. It may be a vintage shell. I don't know. Matt, if you're watching this, yep, this is one of the shells that you gave me and Josh whenever you were visiting us at the range. So, in case you were curious how these were put together, well, there you go. Pretty interesting. Alright, so here it is put back together, and yeah, the top edge of the shell is now a little bit frayed and chewed up. That's just what happens to paper hulls whenever you open them up and re-crimp them. There's no way around that. Maybe you could try to re-wax it. I might do that, I might not. But the center of the crimp here is a little bit frayed too, and that is just from being pried up. But overall, the taper is well pronounced, and the crimp itself is deep set and sealed really well, and it is uniform. I did learn something though. This 100% is a vintage shell, and how I learned that is the primer. The picture I showed you guys, which I will put up right here, of the reproduction has what appears to be a Rio Shadite NSI style primer. Could be a Fiocchi too, I guess. Whatever that Eley uses is what's in it. Well, this is a vintage primer. You can see it's all brass. The head stamp appears to be a little bit different on the reproduction. It's kind of hard to tell because the picture is so low quality, but that doesn't really matter. This is 100% a vintage shell. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I certainly did. I love breaking down vintage shells. Although the paper ones is kind of a love-hate thing. I really like looking at those, you know, open them up and see what's in them. But at the same time, you always end up with an, an ugly shell afterwards. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.